The Pentagon wants to move $4.3 billion to fund emergency COVID-19 requirements. Federal News Network reports the 2021 Compendium from the DoD Office of Inspector General has 65 recommendations on workforce safety and effective spending during the pandemic. Troy Meyer is Acting Deputy Inspector General for Audit at the Department of Defense Office of Inspector General. Thanks for joining me, Troy. What trends do you see in this year's Compendium?
Well, since we issued our first compendium in 2017, we saw a steady increase in the number of open recommendations. We also saw a steady increase in the number of recommendations that were unresolved, meaning we didn't have an agreed upon action with the department, and the number of aged recommendations, the number of recommendations that were over 5 years old. This year, we saw some of those trends go in a positive direction. Last year, we reported over 1,600 open recommendations. This year, the number is 1,450 open recommendations. So the department has been making a concerted effort over the last year in particular to implement our recommendations. The number of unresolved recommendations was last year was almost double what it is now. And even though we're seeing the number of aged recommendations over 5 years old increase, they're increasing at a slower rate. So the department is taking positive action on our open recommendations.
What do you think is driving this action? Why is DoD addressing more of these recommendations faster, generally speaking?
Since the issuance of our first compendium, we have been working with the department very closely, meeting with them on a regular basis to reconcile the recommendations, the number of open recommendations, and discuss what the department needs to do to implement those recommendations and what documentation they need to provide us to demonstrate that they've implemented the recommendations. But I think the department does recognize that within those recommendations, there are cost efficiencies and savings for the department, and those recommendations represent areas where they can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of their programs and save taxpayer dollars and ensure that there is an internal control environment that detects and deters fraud, waste, and abuse. So there is an incentive from their standpoint to implement our recommendations in a timely manner.
And obviously, it's a very large number of recommendations, but some are higher priority than others. Do you see DoD trying to tackle those first, or how do they sort of prioritize what should be done first or more quickly?
Well, we do help the department prioritize the recommendations. This year, we identified 20 high priority recommendations. Over the last year, we've seen the department take action to actually close out what we've previously reported. So the department continues to work on those high priority recommendations. For example, last year, we reported that in relation to the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program, that the contractor wasn't delivering spare parts that complied with contractor requirements. As a result of our work, the contractor settled with the department for over $70 million. And another highlight from last year, the department's service law enforcement agencies are supposed to provide fingerprint cards and disposition reports for those that are convicted of crimes to the FBI. We were able to determine over the last year that the department has improved that process and has made significant progress towards implementing those recommendations. So we do think over the last year the department has prioritized the right things. However, there's still some work that needs to be done. There are some recommendations that were high priority in previous years that continue to remain open, and the department still needs to address.
Troy, you mentioned the benefits that DoD and taxpayers can gain by the Pentagon acting on these recommendations. Certainly, it sounds like there's a dollar figure associated with some of these recommendations. Are there other benefits? Can you expand a little bit on what you see as kind of the gains that can be made when these recommendations are addressed?
Well, it's not only the cost savings, the recovery of dollars that are questions or future funds that could be spent better. It's improving internal controls that will detect and deter fraud, waste, and abuse. It's identifying the efficiencies and effectiveness of programs. They're basically management improvement recommendations that will make their programs more efficient and effective.
Let's talk a little bit about pandemic related recommendations. Obviously, this has been an area of focus over the last year in particular. How have these been addressed by the Pentagon?
There is a sense of urgency in pandemic oversight. Our recommendations go to ensuring the health and safety of our service members as well as our civilian workforce, and ensuring pandemic-related dollars are spent as intended. The department has understands that urgency and has been taking corrective action to implement our recommendations.
With just about a minute to go, looking toward next year's compendium, what are you hoping to see? What will you be watching?
Well, with over 1,400 open recommendations, if you break those recommendations down by topic, the largest number is within the cyber area. So we will continue to watch the recommendations related to cyber and hope to see more timely implementation of those recommendations. Uh, with regards to financial management, in addition to the 1,400 open recommendations, there's 3,500 notifications of findings recommendations that the department needs to make progress on to get a clean opinion on their financial statement. In addition, as the sage of the New York Yankees, Yogi Berra, said, it's not over till it's over. So we're still in a pandemic. We're still going to continue to do pandemic oversight work, and we will closely monitor the department's implementation of those recommendations.
Thanks for joining me, Troy.
Well, thank you.